Hello, friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I slipped out of the cruiser before the heater even had time to shut off, my boots crunching through the fresh drift as I braced against the wind. The snow was already up to my knees along the edge of County Road 47, and my breath came out in ragged clouds. I keyed the microphone. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Keller. I'm at the Milligan place. Siren seeing headlights off the road, no passengers visible." Static crackled back that units were delayed. Great. I cut the engine and stepped onto the porch, each board groaning under my weight. The broken planks revealed the dark void of the living room floor. I ducked through the sagging doorway, mag light sweeping low across peeling wallpaper and rotting joists. Inside, the silence was absolute, thick enough to choke on. My light beam skimmed across muddy footprints, one set fresh, another scuffed and muted by weeks of dust and decay. I followed the prints toward the kitchen, where the sink lay full of yellowed snowmelt, and a single window stared out at the storm like a blank eye. A drawer lay open, its contents spilled onto a filthy linoleum floor. A rusted can opener lay beside a heavy knife. I snapped a photo on the cruiser camera. Evidence in case I needed it later, but the place felt staged, like someone had moved things. My heart drummed. I edged through a doorway into what had once been a living room. A sagging couch faced a broken fireplace. Candle stubs littered the mantel. I called out, "Ethan Clark?" "This is the sheriff's department." My voice echoed, then died. No answer. The temperature inside hovered just above zero. The cold had frozen my breath to the glass on the window pane. Something in the back of my skull told me I wasn't alone. I retraced my steps and climbed the narrow stairwell. Each tread creaked like an old woman groaning. A faint glow leaked from the third door on the right. I clicked off my safety and advanced. The smell hit me first. Coppery, thick, as if someone had spilled iron filings across the carpet. I flicked on my light and found a circle of candles burning at uneven heights. Their wax pools glistened in the beam's glare. In the center, a battered folding chair faced away from me. On its seat lay a battered radio. Scanner, set to my own frequency, its speaker crackling static. I swallowed, trying to swallow my own shaking. I eased closer, light probing the walls, and then I saw them, photographs pinned by rusty tacks to every scrap of wall around me. Photos of my cruiser on patrol. Photos of me locking the front door at home. Photos of empty roads. County Road 47 at dusk, the Milligan farmstead from last summer. Interspersed were images of other faces, men and women from missing person reports. Each had red ink encircling their eyes. At the center, a crudely drawn map of Oak Ridge County, red dots at the Milligan place, the long-abandoned Caldwell barn, and my own house 5 miles south. My radio suddenly chirped. Muscle memory made me jerk the mag light up and spin. "Deputy Keller," dispatch came through. "The wreck matches Clark's plate. He's been missing since December. Units are 10 minutes out if roads hold." I exhaled too fast. "Copy that. I need you to update me if backup's halfway here. I'm fine." I wiped my shaking hand on my jacket. I had a man out there somewhere, hurt, maybe dying. That's when I heard it. A soft thump, like something heavy being set on wood. My head snapped toward the hall. The stairwell crackled. the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. I flicked off the light and pressed flat against the wall. My heart thundered so loud I thought they'd hear it in dispatch. I keyed the mic on the dark. Keller to dispatch, movement upstairs, be advised. My words cut off as a low voice rasped. You came alone, didn't you? I felt the air shift. Something came around the doorframe, tall, lean. My fingers tightened on the grip of my holster. I had no idea how he got in behind me, but I knew that tone. Calm, certain. The devil's own patience. "Alex?" I whispered. "Alex Monroe?" He stepped into the candlelight. His eyes glowed with a familiar fury, sharp as glass. The man had been my partner 2 years back, until complaints of brutality got him fired. I'd volunteered on the board that dismissed him. He'd vanished before the appeal. Now, here he was, knife in hand, framed by the flicker of dying flames. "I watched you," he said, voice low, "and you never noticed." He raised the blade, its edge catching glints of candle wax. My bullet was gone from the scanner's cushion. I'd dropped it when I slipped through that door. I swallowed hard, chest tight. The deputy and me ran through my options. Call for backup, run for the stairs, fight. But he'd staged this place, knew every creak and every shadow. I whispered into the dark, "Alex, don't do this. You don't have to." He advanced, slow. "This is justice," he said, "for all the ones you forgot." I reached for the chair, yanked it free, and swung it at him. The wood cracked under the weight, and he staggered sideways. That gave me the opening. I rolled around him, heart pounding, and slipped out into the hallway. He snarled and chased, boots thudding against rotted boards. I slammed the first door I passed, leaned against it to catch my breath. My gun lay on the floor inside. My mag light sat with the candles. I pushed the door open a crack, enough to slip through. The room was empty except for an old writing desk and a chair. I snatched the light and my gun. The scanner buzzed on the floor, tuning static. He spun around the corner, blade drawn. I trained my light and my barrel on his chest. His face was a mask of twisted triumph. "Go ahead," he dared. "Shoot me." My finger trembled on the trigger. I saw memories flicker in his eyes, years of brutal arrests, nights of battle fatigue. But this wasn't about mercy. It was about survival. I squeezed. 2 shots echoed and the world convulsed under my feet. He jerked, dropped, and slid to the floor in a heap. Blood pooled slowly beneath him, mapping out the shape of the man he'd once been. I knelt, cuffing his wrists behind his back. His eyes fluttered, then went glassy. I keyed the mic, voice tight. "Dispatch, suspect down. Send medical, possible multiple victims, evidence of abductions in the cellar. I need units now." I sank back on my heels, exhausted, torchlight dancing over his still form. The storm outside pressed against the windows like hungry ghosts. I let out a slow breath. The farmhouse moaned around me, as though grateful for the reprieve. But I knew this night wasn't over, not by a long shot. I rose, gun still trained on him, and edged toward the stairwell. There was more down there, another waiting room of horrors, a storm cellar packed with bones and tools of cruelty. My boots hit the cellar steps. Each one echoed, marking time until dawn or damnation. The howl of wind followed me into the darkness. I lit another candle. The flame shivered. Around me, the walls were papered with mugshots and silhouettes scrawled in blood. Jars of bone fragments lined a shelf. Names, dates, faces. This was his shrine to violence. And at the far end, a fresh body lay bound on a slab. I knelt beside him, recognizing the worn shirt and faded jeans. I snapped a photo. Then I turned away, heart pounding, voice raw. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm sorry it took so long." Behind me, the cellar door creaked. I spun, gun up. But there was no one there, only the shadows shifting in the candle glow. I didn't hesitate this time. I fired once, into the dark. The echo roared through the corpse-lined walls. My radio crackled faintly. Backup was close. But in that moment, I knew the real hunt had only begun. I eased myself upright from the cellar floor, every joint in my body screaming. The candle in my hand trembled, its flame flickering against the stone walls. The stench of damp earth mixed with old blood clung to my nostrils. Monroe's body lay behind me, boots still twitching beneath the cuffed wrists. I didn't spare him a second glance. I had work to do. Focusing on the man before me, bound to the cold slab, I knelt again, careful not to knock over the row of jars lining the shelf. Each jar held a fragment, a tooth, a scrap of clothing, a lock of hair, trophies of his sinister collection. The man on the slab was the freshest. His pale face was slack, eyes closed but unseeing. He'd been out here maybe hours, maybe less. I glanced at the crude calendar etched into the wall beside him. 6 red marks, each crossed out. The last mark was today's date. My fingers hovered over his pulse. Nothing. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It was a hollow ritual, confirmation of the obvious, but I needed the moment to steel myself. I turned and swept the maglite across the rest of the cellar. There were hooks affixed to the wooden beams overhead, streaked with rust. A blood-spattered table waited at the far corner, instruments laid out like sick trophies. Pliers, scalpels, lengths of wire. A saw, stained with dark streaks, rested on a bench. The whole scene was painstakingly organized, as if the killer wanted someone, me, to find it all. I snapped several photos, my gloved hand steady despite the adrenaline pounding through my veins. Monroe would wake eventually, hauled off to medical. But I knew how fast his twisted mind worked. He'd be spinning this into a confession, blaming me for everything. I had to control the narrative. Evidence in place, I pocketed my camera and rose, muscles stiff from the cramped posture. Heading back up the steps, I paused at the top, listening for any sound from the farmhouse's main level. The storm raged outside. The wind howled through cracks in the boards, sounding like distant lamentations. No footsteps, no banging against doors, just the steady pulse of the storm. I glanced at my watch. 2:13 a.m. Backup should arrive any minute now. I climbed the staircase carefully, every creak making me flinch. The main floor was empty, but I didn't trust silence. I swept each room with my light, checking corners, peeking in closets. The farmhouse had 3 bedrooms, a small bathroom, and what looked like a makeshift storage room. That room contained nothing but stacks of old newspapers and broken furniture. No sign of life. At the top of the stairs by the main hallway, I stopped at the last closed door. It was the only one I hadn't entered since the candles. I pressed my ear to it. Silence. I cracked the door open an inch. The faint glow from a single flashlight beam crossed the floorboards. I eased inside, gun raised. The room was empty except for a small pile of belongings in the corner. Ethan Clark's duffel bag and coat, damp with melted snow. I knelt, unzipped the bag and found his wallet, ID, and phone. No blood, no obvious clues. Whoever had dragged him here had taken care not to leave a trail. A sudden thump behind me made me spin around. The open window rattled in its frame. A broken shutter banged against the exterior wall. My heart slammed. This place was playing tricks on me, every crack and groan turning to menace. I forced myself to calm down. Rational thoughts, the weather, the age of the house, Old boards settling. I returned to the hallway. Only one room remained unsearched, the bathroom. I cracked the door. Inside, the tub was filled with dirty water and melting ice. I flashed my light along the tile walls. Nothing. But on the medicine cabinet mirror, scrawled in red lipstick, were the words, "I see you." A wave of nausea slammed into me. My own face stared back from the glass, illuminated by my flashlight. The lipstick message wasn't old. Its color was bright as if applied hours ago. Monroe must have left it, or, worse, he'd been here after I found the body, waiting. The thought that he might have been behind me only moments before made my blood run cold. I backed out, heart racing. The hallway seemed endless. I checked my radio. "Keller to dispatch," I rasped. "Backup ETA 10 minutes. Found messages inside, possible booby traps. Send bomb techs if you have them." Static hissed in response. I had to hold on. I reached the main door and opened it a crack. The wind gusted inside, swirling papers across the floor. My boots crunched through the drifts as I stepped onto the porch. The storm had intensified. Snow whipped past my face, stinging my eyes. I stepped off the porch toward my cruiser, each footfall deliberate. I needed to clear my head, regain control. As I neared the car, I spotted fresh footprints cutting across the yard. 2 sets, one mine, one, smaller, lighter, someone else's. They trailed toward the old barn. My pulse spiked. I clicked on my light and raced across the killing cold. The barn's double doors hung open. Inside, moonlight spilled through gaps in the roof. I shone the beam around. Hay bales strewn across the floor, the old livestock stalls empty. Then I saw it, written in fresh blood on the barn wall. "Good hunt." My breath froze. This was no longer about rescuing Ethan Clark. This was a game. I felt hands tighten around my shotgun, but the rage surged through me. I advanced into the barn, voice steady despite the tremor. "I'm done playing, Monroe. It ends now." The wind's howl turned to 1,000 whispers. There was no answer. I backed out into the storm, scanning for any sign of movement. Footprints vanished into the darkness beyond the barn. The only sound was the thud of my own heart and the relentless storm. My radio crackled again, backup on the way, but I knew I wasn't safe until Monroe was in cuffs. I'd walked into his trap once. I wouldn't walk into it again. With the wind at my back, I sprinted toward my cruiser. The door slammed as I jumped inside and I locked it tight. My hands shook as I loaded shells into the shotgun beside me. Outside, the storm raged. I pointed the barrel toward the barn, every nerve on edge. For the next 30 minutes, I held my position, storm signs and footprints my only company. When headlights finally appeared in the blackness, I felt relief wash over me, but vigilance remained. I drove back toward the farmhouse with my shotgun across my lap, mind replaying every step, every whisper. Monroe's taunts echoed, "Good hunt." I parked near the cellar entrance and waited. The other deputies piled out, flashlights flashing, radios buzzing. I led them down into Monroe's lair. The scene still made my stomach knot. Bodies, maps, jars. The handiwork of a man who'd studied me, hunted me, and almost won. Hours later, I stood outside in the weak dawn light, frost crusting my uniform. The farmhouse loomed behind me, windows blown out like dead eyes. Monroe lay in an ambulance, moaning. Ethan Clark's body had been moved to the coroner. Evidence vans lined up. But in my gut, I felt only the weight of unfinished business. I picked up my radio and spoke into it, voice hoarse. "Dispatch, this is Keller. Cleanup crews should secure the barn. I want Monroe read his rights personally and get me something hot to drink." I paused. "And check every set of footprints tonight." there might still be someone else out there. The sun rose in a pale glow behind me, but the light felt cold. As I watched the farmhouse fade into the winter haze, I knew the real darkness didn't end with dawn, and the game Monroe had started might be far from over. I pushed aside the cold steel of the ambulance stretcher and squared my shoulders, shotgun still in hand. The dawn's pale light seeped through the shattered windows of the Milligan farmhouse, painting every splintered board in ghostly gray. Monroe's moans echoed from the courtyard, but I ignored them. My eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the storm's final flurries drifted away, leaving a silence that felt as heavy as grief. I slipped down the cellar steps alone, boots crunching on gravel that hadn't been there when I last descended. The wind-driven snow had crept in through cracks, dusting the bones and instruments in icy white. My breath fogged in the narrow stairwell. Every nerve in my body screamed that this place held one secret more, something Monroe had left behind. At the bottom, I paused. The single candle I'd lit earlier guttered out, leaving me in near darkness except for the pale glow of morning filtering through one tiny window. My flashlight trembled as I flipped it on, its beam spreading across the wall of jars. I counted them again. 24 intact, one shattered on the floor. And then I saw it. A fifth set of footprints, smaller than mine, crisscrossing the dust next to Monroe's tracks. They led away from the slab, toward a narrow tunnel I hadn't noticed before. I crouched beside the opening. The tunnel mouth was roughly hewn stone about 4 feet high. Snow had partially blocked it, but someone, or something, had brushed it clear. My pulse thudded. Monroe hadn't been alone. Whoever had helped him had slipped away when the shooting began. I couldn't let them vanish into these miles of woods. I radioed dispatch. Keller to all units, possible second suspect in cellar. Private tunnel entrance found, I'm checking it out. Static crackled, then an uneasy acknowledgement. I holstered my sidearm and loaded fresh shells into the shotgun. One step into the tunnel, and cold air slammed into me like a freight train. I tugged my jacket tighter, chest tight with adrenaline. The walls closed in, and the beam of my light bobbed over slick stone. I moved cautiously, shotgun leading, ear cocked for any hint of movement. The tunnel sloped gently downward, and a thin line of footprints led deeper into darkness. I paused at a fork. Left led to an obvious low-ceiling crawl. Right descended more steeply. I chose right. My boots scraped the wet stone and I slipped once, catching myself on the wall. My heart hammered. Not fear, but that raw, relentless determination to end this. After what felt like endless minutes, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. The floor was covered in straw, and the stench of decay hit me like a wall. Flickering lantern light glowed at the far end, revealing a crude wooden table set against the wall. On it lay Monroe's battered radio scanner, dead batteries. Next to it, a set of handcuffs identical to mine, one cuff open, the other locked around a broken wrist. A fresh pool of blood glistened on the straw. I swallowed hard and advanced. At the back of the chamber, a doorway led into another pitch-black room. As I crossed the floor, the beam of my flashlight swept over something that made me freeze. A child's red jacket, torn and stained, lying beside a small boot. My throat went dry. I crouched and ran my gloved fingers over the jacket's name tag. KC. KC? I whispered. That was my daughter's nickname. My heart seized in my chest. My pulse thundered. I forced myself to stand and moved toward the door. Each step felt heavier, as though the air itself resisted. I pushed into the black room, and the lantern light revealed the impossible. A small cot in the center bound in rope. On it lay a young boy, maybe 8, shivering, eyes wide with terror. His lips moved before I could breathe. "Daddy?" I nearly dropped the shotgun, my own boy. My heart pounded so loud I thought the walls would shake. I set the weapon aside and rushed forward. I cut the ropes with shaking hands. He collapsed into my arms, sobbing. His small body shook uncontrollably. "Papa," he gasped. He said you'd come." I swept him up and backed toward the tunnel entrance, eyes darting for any movement. The tunnels had no other exits. Whoever Monroe's accomplice was, they'd planned this away from discovery. I gripped the boy's face, his pale cheeks, tear-streaked eyes, and my stomach lurched. I thought of the jars, the bones, the silent victims. Now, my own blood had been targeted. A low, scraping noise behind me made me spin around, shotgun in one hand, boy in the other. The lantern light flickered violently as a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman in stained coveralls, face obscured by soot. Her eyes gleamed with a feral calm. Not Monroe, someone else entirely. "Sorry," she said softly. "He didn't think you'd find her." She stepped closer, and I realized with dread that she held something in her hand. A small vial of clear liquid. Adrenaline surged. "Don't," I growled, thumb at the trigger. But she just tilted her head as if curious. "He loved to play games," she whispered. "He wanted to see how far you'd go." She took a step closer. Behind her, I glimpsed another child, older, around 10, bound to a post, eyes wide with fear. "No," I muttered. "You're not touching them." She smiled, a cold, inscrutable curve. "You've been running on instinct all night, Deputy, but you're too late." Her hand trembled as she raised the vial. I lunged, shotgun swinging, but she dove aside with impossible speed. The vial shattered on the floor, releasing a hiss of gas. Pain flared in my lungs. I staggered, coughing, eyes watering. The boy in my arms whimpered as the gas enveloped us. My vision blurred. I gripped the boy tighter, but the world tilted. She stood above us, shadowed by the lantern light, and whispered, "Goodbye, Sheriff's son," before stepping back into darkness. I staggered toward the tunnel, dragging my son. My legs trembled uncontrollably. The world spun. Every breath was fire. I heard footsteps behind me, her footsteps, triumphant. I fired blindly over my shoulder, shotgun blasts thundering in the confined space. The last thing I saw was her silhouette sinking into darkness, then nothing but choking blackness. When I came to, I was cradling my son in the open air outside the barn, tents and patrol lights blazing around us. My uniform was wet with tears and blood. My lungs burned. My son's face was streaked with soot, but he was alive, eyes filled with dread. Deputies swarmed the barn. I raised my voice, rasping, "Search the tunnel." "She's in there." But the entrance was gone, caved in, collapsed as if it had never existed. Monroe's accomplice had vanished, taking with her all traces of the final chamber. They lifted me and my son onto stretchers. I saw unconscious bodies, being pulled from the trees, victims Monroe had kidnapped, but the woman and one older child were nowhere to be found. My radio crackled. "Units are sweeping the area, Sheriff." I gripped the microphone with one hand, my son's trembling body in the other. "Keep looking," I rasped. "Find them." They loaded us into an ambulance, and I looked back one last time at the barn, its dark rafters like the jaws of some ancient beast. The wind whispered through the broken boards, carrying a faint, mocking giggle. As they closed the doors, I realized that Monroe's twisted game was only half finished. A new player had emerged, and her prize was my child. The daylight offered no comfort. It was just another mask for the darkness that had invaded my life. I held my son close, breathing in his frightened scent, knowing that no amount of daylight would ever drive these shadows away. And somewhere in the woods, she watched me. I rolled off the blacktop onto the gravel shoulder just past midnight. My cruiser's headlights cut through a low fog, backlighting the dust kicked up by the tires and casting long, wavering shadows across the fields. My name is Deputy Jack Harper, Cedar Ridge County Sheriff's Office, and nights like this wear you down, bone and soul. I kept the wheel steady, ear pressed against the radio for any chatter, but the county was quiet tonight, too quiet for my taste. Dispatch had sent me to Circle S Ranch after a silent alarm at the old filling station on the property. The place had been boarded up for years, but someone installed a rusted keypad on the door. The alarm line was still live, and tonight it tripped at 12:04 a.m. I pulled into the gravel lot, gravel crunching underfoot, and killed the engine. The only light came from my spotlight and the cracked glow of a broken porch lamp, its bulb flickering like a dying heartbeat. I checked the keypad. No recent fingerprints I could see, just the weathered numbers and a smear of something dark across the 6. I keyed the mic. Harper to dispatch. I'm on scene Circle S. No sign of forced entry yet. Static crackled back. Copy that, Jack. ETA on backup is 10 minutes. 10 minutes might as well be 10 hours out here. Sweat beaded at my hairline despite the cool night air. I unclipped my flashlight, tapped the tail cap to send a narrow beam across the door. The paint was peeling, wood swollen from rain, and a handprint ghosted across the surface. Clean, darker than the wood around it. I pressed my palm over it. It wasn't cold, it was warm. The radio fell silent. I cleared my throat and pushed the door open. It creaked on rusted hinges, echoing inside like a distant thunderclap. My light swept across dusty shelves that once held snacks and oil cans, now empty. The tiled floor was cracked, weeds pushing through. My boots crunched on broken glass. In the center of the room, an armchair sat angled toward a stained counter. The leather was torn. The stuffing peeked through. No footprints led to it. No footprints led away. I edged past the counter toward a side doorway leading to the office. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and something sour. Old sweat or rot, I couldn't tell. My breathing felt loud. I clicked the mic off, but the silence pressed against me, made my shoulders ache. Inside the office, I found the desk still bolted to the floor, papers strewn across it as if someone left in a hurry, or was pushed. A ledger lay open to August 1987, the last recorded sale, lint and dust over fingerprints. I lifted a sheet. It was half burned, edges singed. The names of local ranchers were listed with account balances. Someone had gone through it, set fire to the entries they didn't want discovered. The back door stood ajar, cold air drifting in. I signaled for backup, but my voice trembled. I didn't like leaving a building empty with the door wide open. 40 yards away, the old motel cottages sat in neat rows, all condemned. One of them still had a flicker of light in the window, a pale square where the curtain was torn. I didn't see anyone, just that shifting glow, like a candle caught in a breeze. I holstered my flashlight and crossed the parking lot, boots sinking into soft earth. My heartbeat thumped in my ears. I reached the window and crouched, pressing my palm against the cold glass. The light inside pulsed, and I heard a soft tapping, metal on wood. I grabbed the frame, pushed, and the door swung inward, straight into my chest. Inside, the cottage was empty, save for a small metal table centered under the lamp. On the table lay a single white mask, one of those cheap carnival masks with hollow eye holes and a painted smile. The lamp flickered above it like a warning. My light landed on dusty footprints circling the table. some small, some large, as if more than one person had paced here. I knelt to inspect them. The prints led to the doorway and stopped. The floor beyond was bare earth, footprints lost to dirt. I stood, heart hammering so loud I thought they might hear it outside. Something shifted behind me, a breath too close, and I spun. My light found the far wall, where a narrow door I hadn't noticed swung open a crack. Behind it, darkness yawned, as black as a new moon night. I clicked the flashlight to high. The beam cut into the gap and found nothing. Just a narrow corridor of stone and mortar, wet stones glinting in the light. I didn't know how an underground passage ended up under an old motel cottage, but I knew I had to see. I drew my weapon and stepped inside. The concrete walls closed around me, and the sound of the night drained away. My boots clacked on damp stone blocks. The air turned cool, smelled of mildew and something metallic. Blood, perhaps, or rust. I swallowed, fingers tightening on the grip. The corridor stretched 50 feet, then opened into a low-ceiling chamber lit by a single exposed bulb high on the wall. The bulb flickered, sputtered, then steadied. My light revealed metal chairs bolted to the floor and a long stained table scarred with deep grooves. On the table lay notebooks, a small digital recorder, and several vials filled with cloudy liquid. I crouched to examine the notebooks. The pages were filled with neat handwriting. Subject 1, response to compound A, partial paralysis. Subject 2, serum B, uncontrolled tremors. The pages dripped with moisture and stained darker. I stood and shone my light on the recorder. The display read recording, and the red light blinked. I hit play, a crackle of static, then a voice, calm and clipped. Time 0. Administering dose. Subject exhibits elevated heart rate. Cannot speak eyes, tracking instrument. Continue observation. The voice paused as a muffled sound came through. A choked gasp, then silence. My blood ran cold. A sudden noise behind me, a metallic scrape, made my head whip around. The door at the far end of the chamber swung shut with a clang. My flashlight beam shivered across the bulb, then landed on something moving in the corner. I couldn't see it clearly, just a silhouette crouched, arms folded over knees, head bowed. I raised my voice. "Sheriff's office." "Come out with your hands up." No answer. I clicked the recorder off and stuffed it into my pocket. I eased forward, careful with each step, voice calm though my heart pounded. "I'm not here to hurt you, I just want to talk." My words sounded hollow. The figure didn't move. I took 2 more steps and saw the hands, pale, thin, knuckles scarred. A woman's voice broke the silence. "Please, help me." I stepped closer, light on her face. She trembled, eyes wide with fear. Her uniform was torn and stained. I reached out, but she flinched. "I'm Deputy Carter's colleague. I'll get help." She shook her head, voice barely a breath. "They'll know you came." Behind me, there was a click. I whirled to find the door latched, the corridor black again. My radio crackled overhead. "Harper, are you okay?" I didn't answer. I stared at the dark passage behind me, realizing backup was still on the surface, unaware I'd gone down here. I turned back to her. Her eyes were fixed on something behind me, something I couldn't see. The flashlight beam danced across the walls, then stopped on the vials. One lay broken, liquid seeping onto the floor. She whispered, "It's not just here, it's everywhere." My ribs burned as I drew a slow breath. My grip tightened on my weapon. I took a step toward the exit, ready to pull her to safety, but the corridor seemed to stretch infinitely ahead, swallowing the light. The door at the entry point remained closed, mocking me. The distant hum of the motel generator faded. I swallowed, forcing my voice steady. "Stay close. I'm getting us out." Her nod was slow, eyes unblinking. I turned and charged the corridor at a run, her quick steps behind me. But 15 feet in, my boot caught on a kink in the stone, and I stumbled forward, pain shooting in my shoulder. The flashlight spun from my grip, clattering on the floor and skidding into darkness. The last thing I saw before my world went black was her silhouette stepping forward into the beam, mask like fear frozen on her face. I came to on my back, the stone floor cold and unforgiving beneath me. My ribs burned where I'd hit the edge of a block. Every breath a jagged stab. Somewhere ahead, I could hear her breathing, quick, shallow, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I forced my eyes open, blinked against the darkness, and tried to find my flashlight. It lay a few feet away, its beam out, powerless. I reached for it, but my fingers scraped over damp stone instead. I sat up on one elbow and looked down the corridor. The far end swallowed any light, and I had no idea how long it stretched. My pulses hammered in my temples. I coughed against the pain, then forced myself to stand. Every move sent white-hot pain through my shoulder and side, but adrenaline numbness let me ignore it. I pressed my back against the wall and took a steadying breath. I had to keep moving. My gun lay inside my jacket pocket. I palmed it out, flashlight still out of reach, and clicked on the small emergency lantern I kept on my belt. A yellow glow filled the narrow passage, illuminating slick, mossy stones and old water stains on the walls. I swept the beam around, revealing the half-open door where I'd entered. It stood at the end of a short ramp, a metal latch glinting where it had slammed shut. I jostled it. It didn't budge. Behind me, footsteps approached, her footsteps. I spun, leveled my small lantern toward her voice. She stood there, pale face framed by tangled hair, uniform torn and stained, but her eyes burned with purpose. "We have to move," I said, voice rough. I showed her the lantern. She nodded, relief flickering in her expression. "This way," I told her, and led her back down the corridor toward a side tunnel I'd glimpsed before. The tunnel turned sharply, the floor sloping upward. My lantern beam shivered over dripping rocks, then caught on rusty rebar embedded in the wall. Evidence this place wasn't just carved by hand, but reinforced. I frowned. Why reinforce a simple passage? At the bend, I felt a breeze on my cheek, fresh air. My heart thudded. Outside must be close. I kept her between me and the darkness as we climbed. The breeze grew stronger, bringing the faint odor of night air and pine needles. My shoulders screamed in protest, but I ignored it. 10 feet more, and we pushed through a low, iron-hinged door into a small crawl space. Branches and leaves pressed against the opening, like a coastal hair shirt. I crouched and led her through, mucus, slick wood scraping my jacket. I crawled head first, chest and legs following. She was behind me, silent. We popped out into the night air, crouched under a stand of pines. I drew in a lungful of cold air, felt it sharp against my bruised side. No moon, only a sallow glow behind clouds. The air was thick with pine sap and damp earth. I scanned the woods but saw no lights, no sign of the motel above. We were at least 50 yards from the last building, maybe more. I stood and offered her my arm. She leaned on me, her weight light but unsteady. My ribs burned anew, but I steadied her and moved us toward a faint glow over the next rise. It looked like nothing more than a broken lamp, barely lit through breaking branches. As we climbed, I radioed over the emergency channel. My radio was operational, but the repeater only picked up on high ground. Harper to dispatch. I'm out of the structure, one injured deputy here. Need immediate extraction, circle S. Static swallowed the channel. I tried again, nothing. My heart sank. If the generators for these repeaters were on the ranch house, they were long gone. I clicked off the radio and pocketed it. We keep moving, I whispered. She nodded, squeezing my arm. I led her across uneven ground, roots twisting beneath fallen needles. Her breaths came in ragged gasps. She needed medical help, fast. As we crested the ridge, I saw the motel cottages down below, their windows dark except for one room at the far end. A single lit bulb flickered inside like a heartbeat. There was someone there. I pointed. We can make for that window. Maybe there's a phone, or at least a means to signal help. Her nod was slow, fearful, but determined. We dropped to all fours and crawled toward a dilapidated service road below the cottages. A broken street lamp overhead buzzed, flickered, then winked out. The night clicked into deeper blackness. I swallowed hard. We were exposed. Yet the lit window held promise. I counted the cottages, 1, 2, 3, 5 down. I moved to the first cottage's wall, pressed close, then inched sideways cottage by cottage, keeping the window in sight. My lantern was gone, so I whispered instructions. Stay low, don't shine anything. She slipped down behind me. We reached the fifth cottage's corner. I quietly lifted the loose board to the side of the window, easy to remove, decades of rot making it pliable. Inside, the room was barren. Bed frame missing mattress, a desk under the window. On the desk lay a rotary phone. I slipped a finger into the handset cord. It was cut clean, no connection. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices. That window wasn't refuge, it was bait. I felt her trembling beside me. I whispered, "We can't trust anything here." My voice felt hollow. We backed away and retraced our crawl to the woods. A stirring in the underbrush made me freeze. Branches snapped to our right. I held up a hand. We dropped flat as an indistinct shape scuttled across the clearing. Behind it, low and guttural, a whisper. "Don't run!" My pulse spiked. The whisper came again. Closer. "You shouldn't have come." I pressed her down into the pine needles. I pulled my gun from my belt and aimed toward the voice. The beam of the gun's laser sight carved a red dot on a nearby tree trunk. I stepped forward, trying to slow my breathing. The whisper circled us, a low stalking sound, then a laugh, cold, humorless, echoing in the night. "Now we know you're here." The voices multiplied, seeming to come from all directions. I raised my voice, forced calm. "Cedar Ridge Sheriff's Office. Show yourselves, we have an injured deputy." No answer but the rustle of leaves and soft mocking echoes. Fear clawed at my chest. I felt Mia press into me, her weight trembling. Tears, unfamiliar, but not of relief. My ribs screamed protest as I raised my radio. Even if no repeater, maybe the direct channel would reach someone. I keyed the mic. "Harper here. Mayday. Need extraction?" The line crackled, then scrambled into silence. The voices closed in, footsteps in grass snapping twigs. A flicker of movement at the tree line. Dark shapes shifting, lit by no moon. The figures emerged, clad in nondescript dark clothing. Faces hidden under hooded jackets. They moved as one, circling. I stepped in front of Mia, gun leveled. "Stay back!" My voice cracked, but I held the gun steady. One of them stepped forward, arms raised, carrying a long metal case. "Deputy Carter?" she said, voice calm, clinical. "We never meant to hurt you." My finger twitched on the trigger. Mia's quiet moan cut through me. The figure stopped 10 feet away, unzipped the case, revealing a row of vials identical to those I'd seen in the chamber. The spray of labels read Compound D, Compound E, each a promise of pain. "You're in danger here," I said, voice low. "Back off. Let us leave." The figure paused, head tilting as though considering. Then a rasp, "You've seen too much." At that moment, another figure waved from the edge of the clearing, silhouetted against the motel's one-lit window. I glanced that way and saw emergency lights flash, blue and red, dim through the trees. Relief surged, then died as I heard the familiar slow crunch of gravel under tires, coming from behind us in the woods, not the road. The lights weren't from deputies. They were from vehicles parked in the trees, engines running, but lights aimed at us from behind. We were surrounded on all sides. My heart pounded. I spun, gun sweeping, but saw only darkness and the reflection of lights on wet leaves. The figures ahead pressed closer, their faces still hidden. My voice shook. "Don't do this. Let us go." They tilted their heads in unison, like marionettes on invisible strings. The vials glinted in the low light. Mia whimpered, a choked sound that cracked my resolve. I heard the front door of a cruiser open somewhere behind us. Steps, shouts. Yet the rest of the figures held us fast. I realized help had come, but it was already too late for help to save us. The men with vials advanced with careful, deliberate strides. I squeezed the trigger. One shot, echoing through the pines. The nearest figure jerked, then lunged forward with reckless speed. Another shot, a scream, then silence. The other figures halted, as though stunned. The branches overhead stirred, and a voice hissed, "Now, Harper, now they'll know you saw them." I turned to run, grabbing Mia's arm. Her eyes met mine, wide, terrified, yet strangely calm. "Don't look back," I told her. We broke into a sprint toward the distant lights of the actual deputies. Gravel kicked up behind us as something crashed through the underbrush. Shouts, now deafening but too far away. I didn't know if we'd make it. I didn't know what waited in the darkness behind us. All I knew was the forest was alive with their presence, and as I ran, the echo of those who pursued us edged closer. The night air burned my lungs and panic twisted my gut, but I dared not slow. Between the trees, I glimpsed the first cruiser, its lights spinning, door open, officer rushing toward us. Relief surged, a brief spark in my chest, then shattered as the headlights revealed empty ground. No fallen leaves disturbed, no bodies, only shadows that melted into the night. I skidded to a halt, Mia nearly colliding into me. She stared where I stared, at nothing. My gun hand shook so violently I could barely keep the weapon leveled. I called out, voice hollow, "Officer, get down here, we need—" My words trailed off as the forest behind us erupted in low, mocking laughter, surrounding us like a living thing. Mia clutched my arm. Her eyes were vacant now, her face bone pale. I forced myself to speak, to push the terror back. "We have to get back to the station. We have to warn them." My voice was steady, the calm before a storm I couldn't see. In the darkness, behind every tree, they waited. Elliot Harper, Cedar Ridge County. My life had been dedicated to keeping people safe. Now, I realized, I'd led the danger straight to them. Mia whispered, voice distant, "They're in the station, Jack." My blood froze. I looked at her, ache in my chest sharper than any bullet. The truth shattered me. I stumbled backward, mind racing, and realized the wrong side of my radio crackle had been them all along. The station lights would burn all night, welcoming whoever it was that came calling. My last thought as we stood alone under those trees was that sometimes the dark doesn't stay underground. Sometimes it walks right in through the front door. I scrambled backward, heart pounding as the mocking laughter faded into distant rustles. Mia's hand gripped my arm with desperate strength, her body trembling as though the very air had turned to ice. Behind us, the forest stood silent, too silent, like a held breath waiting to be exhaled. I forced my legs to move, dragging her toward the station lights that glowed weakly through the trees. Every snap of twig set my nerves aflame. I dared one glance over my shoulder. Nothing but blackness, yet I felt eyes drilling into my back. The smell of pine and damp earth clung in my nostrils, but beneath it lay something coppery. Blood, fear, betrayal. We stumbled onto the service road that led up to the sheriff's station. The doors stood open, the interior bathed in harsh fluorescent light. Paperwork lay scattered on the front desk, the coffee maker still warm. I blinked, disoriented. How had it stayed unlocked? My radio crackled with static, but no voices. The sound of Mia's ragged breathing kept me tethered to reality. With me, I whispered, half to her, half to myself. We crossed the threshold, boots slipping on discarded files. I slammed the door behind us and locked it, but the click sounded hollow. We were inside, but that did not guarantee safety. I led Mia to a padded bench near the dispatch console. She sank down, eyes glazed, staring at the wall clock, 3:17 a.m. The hands didn't move. I shook my head. Time's wrong, I muttered. My flashlight lantern lay on the floor by her feet, its beam drifting across the room. I picked it up, the red glow steady in my palm. I needed to secure the entrances. "Stay here," I said, voice firmer than I felt. "I'll check the back door." She didn't move, just watched me with hollow eyes. I squared my shoulders, lifted my gun, and walked to the hallway. The corridor beyond dispatch was empty, walls lined with photographs of past sheriffs, respectable men and women whose smiles had once meant security. Now they looked down at me with grim judgment. I passed the evidence locker, its window shattered, padlock twisted off. A chill ran down my spine. Whoever had been here didn't need evidence. They collected people, experiments, fear. At the back exit, I tested the door. It swung open smoothly, revealing a patch of night sky framed by the broken awning. Moonlight, thin and gray, illuminated tire tracks leading into the yard. I stepped out, rifle raised, scanning the perimeter. Nothing stirred, no headlights, no figures. I crouched beside the tracks, fresh, wide treads. Tractor or heavy utility vehicle. They'd arrived after we'd gone underground, following our trail in the dark. A faint rustling behind me spun me around, but only pines sighed in the wind. I ducked inside and secured the latch, turning back to the station interior. The radio on the console clicked alive. "Harper? Are you there?" The voice was frantic. Deputy Soto's. She'd been on a routine evidence pickup miles away. Relief and guilt tangled in my gut. Relief that someone was alive and aware. Guilt that I'd led Mia into this. I switched channels. "Soto, it's me. Stay clear. Back up to Circle S. Something's terribly wrong." I paused, listening as she confirmed. "Copy that. I'll head in, but I'm 30 minutes out." 30 minutes. Back in the bunker, we had barely enough air for 5. I returned to Mia, kneeling beside her. Her eyes tracked a corner of the room, fixated. "They said you'd come," she whispered. "They knew you'd come here last." Dread pooled in my stomach. How had they anticipated this? The criminals I'd faced before hid in darkness. These hunters seemed to know every move. A metallic thump echoed overhead, footsteps on the roof. I sprang upright, gun raised. Mia's hand covered her mouth to stifle a scream. We backed into the dispatch area, crouching behind the desk. My lantern beam danced across the door to the records room, which shuddered under repeated thuds. The door rattled, but did not open. The footsteps paused, then the sound of something heavy sliding across the roof, like a crate being dragged. My mind reeled. Were they burrowing in from above? I felt the ceiling above us tremble. Suddenly, the station's power cut. The fluorescence died, plunging the room into darkness so thick it felt liquid. Mia whimpered. I turned on my handgun's flashlight attachment, a narrow white beam piercing a cone of black. In that beam, the record's door stood ajar, light from the hallway moonshine spilling in. I edged toward it, every sense screaming to stay hidden, but I needed to move Mia deeper into the station's interior, somewhere safer. I grasped her elbow and guided her toward the holding cells at the far end. The hallway floor was slick. We slipped, her arm tearing at my jacket sleeve. As we passed the evidence room, a heavy steel door, it cracked open. A dark shape slipped out behind it and melted into the corridor's gloom. I froze, heard Mia gasp. I raised my light and trained it on the spot. Nothing. Then came the whisper, sibilant and close. "You shouldn't run." I spun, trying to find the source. A shadow flickered past the cell block door. I grabbed Mia and ran past me, toward the records vault. I banged on its reinforced door, light flickering on the numeric keypad. My fingers flew over the keys. 4269, the code I'd set when I first patched the station's security. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, rows of shelves held paper evidence files, personal records, old case notes. The air felt stale, the only illumination a weak emergency bulb. I shoved Mia inside and slammed the door. She fell against the far wall, panting. "I'll lock it," I said, fumbling with the manual bolt. My hands shook uncontrollably. The door slid shut just as something pounded on the other side. 3 sharp knocks, each harder than the last. "Deputy Harper?" A voice called from the other side, calm and impossible. "Open up, we've got a friend for you." My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear to the door. Wet breathing, low and deliberate. "You promised," the voice murmured. "You promised you'd come." I exchanged a terrified glance with Mia, whose eyes glistened with tears. "Stay here," I whispered. "I'll handle this." I should have reversed roles, but I couldn't leave her alone. I stepped away from the vault door and edged to the corner where the surveillance monitor sat, its screen dark. I pressed the power button. Nothing, no cameras, no help. The pounding resumed, heavy enough to shake the door's frame. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Deputy Soto calling. I stared at the screen. Tap answer or ignore. My thumb trembled and I reflexively swiped. The call connected, but no sound came through, only a hiss, then a click. "Welcome home, Jack," Soto's voice came through. Distorted, layered with a rasping undercurrent. My heart lurched. "We've been expecting you." I downed the call. My stomach twisted. The pounding on the door grew louder, unstoppable. I raised my gun, trained on the vault door. "Open this," the voice demanded, "or she dies." Mia's whimper echoed behind me. I clenched my jaw, sweat beating at my temples. My finger tightened on the trigger, but I couldn't pull it. I couldn't risk shooting through the door. My partner's life was on the other side of that steel. I drew a breath, voice steady. "What do you want?" A pause, then a laugh, low and satisfied. "You know what we want, Deputy. The names, the files from Hidden Valley. You've kept them safe all these years. Now it's time to pay." My blood froze. The Hidden Valley case, my obsession, my secret file, was the one thing I'd never shared. I'd vowed to destroy it if I ever felt compromised, but I'd only ever let it gather dust. They wanted that file. They needed it. A heavy silence followed. Then the doorknob rattled. "Last chance," the voice hissed. "Give us the file or watch her bleed out." My mind raced. If I opened the vault, they'd be inside the station in seconds. Unstoppable. If I refused, Mia would be gone. I reached into my breast pocket, pulled out the single manila folder I'd kept hidden. A thick stack of papers labeled Pinewood County, Pioneer's Investigation. It was the digital copies I'd downloaded years ago, the only proof I had. My grip tightened around it. I swallowed, lifted my head. My finger hovered on the vault latch. Behind me, Mia's shallow breathing. Then the pounding stopped. A slow, deliberate click. The vault door slid open just enough for a sliver of the hallway to appear. No one was there, only the dark corridor stretching back toward dispatch. I stepped back, heart pounding. The folder lay before me. I set it on the floor, inches from the door. "Pick it up," the voice commanded, muffled through steel. I froze. Then, with trembling hands, I pushed the folder through the gap. It thudded on the tiles outside. The door slammed shut with finality. I backed away, strapped my gun, and turned to Mia. She was pale, but conscious. Relief swept me, mingled with dread. Whoever they were, they now had my case file. My phone buzzed again, another call from Soto. I silenced it. I couldn't face that distorted voice again. I took Mia's hand. "Come on," I whispered, "we're getting out." We crept from the vault into the records room, but the corridor had changed. Where walls had once led to the main lobby, now a blank wall of unmarked steel panels stretched to the ceiling. There was no way forward. I shone my gun light on the seams. No hinges, no handles. This wasn't our station anymore. Mia cried out. "Jack, what?" I raised a hand to silence her. My mind raced. They'd done this. Reconfigured the building around us. We were trapped. A soft click came from behind us. My lantern flickered. I whirled. The vault door, behind which we'd sought refuge, was gone. In its place was an archway carved from bare rock, dripping with moisture, leading into darkness. My breath caught. This was not part of the station. It was the cave from Hidden Valley, an underground world they'd built beneath my own precinct. A voice whispered from that arch, "Welcome, Sheriff Harper." "We've been waiting." I slammed Mia's hand. "Run!" I snarled, but the corridor behind crumbled. Concrete dust fell, blocking the records room. The rock arch expanded, swallowing the ceiling. Cold air rushed out, smelling of soil and something older. I backed into Mia, drawing my gun. The specter of figures emerged from the rock, faces pale, eyes hollow. The carnival mask from Circle S hung from one's belt. Another held a vial, Compound D. Their leader stepped forward, face obscured. "We're all one family now," he said, voice soft like a lullaby. "You brought the file. Now you know the truth." Mia screamed, and I raised my gun, but the barrel passed through air. Her form flickered, then dissolved into shadows. I lurched forward, grabbing at nothing. Panic seized me. The rock corridor swallowed me in darkness, cold and damp. My flashlight fell from my grip as I stumbled into the yawning cave. Mia's last cry echoed as the walls closed in. The walls that weren't walls at all but flesh. Living earth. No rescue came, no echo of footsteps, just me, alone, in the bowels of a criminal labyrinth that spanned beneath every quiet town, every abandoned station, every cracked barn. I knew then there was no station, no forest, no hope above ground. Only this endless underground, their perfect hiding place, and me, Sheriff's Deputy Harper, lost in a dark world of my own making, with no promise of ever finding the surface again. I'm wrapped in layers of cold as I ease the cruiser along County Road 22, the engine's low hum the only sound in the night. It's just past midnight, and the thermometer says minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit, but the wind slicing through the pines makes it feel closer to minus 25. My breath puffs in clouds that vanish as soon as they form. I can taste the grit of ice on my tongue. I've been on night shift for nearly 10 years, and this time of night still feels like leaning too far over the edge of the world. I tap the microphone. Dispatch, Harrison on 22, all clear so far. Static crackles back. I imagine my own voice echoing through empty farmhouses and frozen fields, bouncing off barns and silos. My headlights sweep half-buried fence posts and snow-lashed gates. Every mile feels longer than the last. Somewhere out there, a stranded motorist or a broken-down semi-trailer might be waiting. But tonight, the road is empty. I inhale and turn the wheel toward the Miller farm. Abandoned since the 80s, the house looks haunted under that thin wash of moonlight. The paint's peeled away in sheets, and the grown-over driveway barely shows. I flick on the spotlight and circle the property. No movement, no lights, just cedar trees limping in the wind. I radio back, Miller Farm, negative activity. The radio's answer is nearly drowned in static. I lean back, thumb brushing the warm spot of my coffee cup. Ahead, the Carter barn sits at the edge of a field, its silhouette slumped under years of neglect. I hit the brakes and kill the engine, and the sudden hush is like submersion. My flashlight clicks on, beam slicing through the darkness. I step onto loose gravel that crunches underfoot, the sound too loud. My boots sink slightly into soft patches of snow drifted against the barn walls. I'm not expecting trouble, just checking the old structure, making sure it's secure. Then I see it. A faint, flickering glow inside one of the broken windows. Not the steady sweep of a flashlight or the warm spill of a lantern. Something smaller, paler. My pulse ticks up. I lean my ear to the window, the wood chilled through my leather glove. I hear nothing but the wind rattling a loose board. I radio in, "Dispatch, I've got a light in the Carter barn, checking it out." The reply crackles back. "Copy that. Back up en route. ETA 10 minutes. I tap off and slide under the window frame. Inside, the barn smells like stale hay and mildew. My beam illuminates a pile of old feed sacks and loose boards stacked for no clear reason. The glow comes from a cracked cell phone screen lying on top of the hay. It pulses in a loop, an incoming call, or maybe a video paused. Nothing else in the barn is moving. No animals, no equipment, just that pale orb of light. I bend to pick it up, and my glove slips on the metal edge of the windowsill. I drop my flashlight, it clatters and spins, then goes dark. My heart hammers. I kneel to retrieve it. When I click it back on, the beam catches fresh footprints in the sawdust-dusted floor. 2 sets, one leading toward the center aisle, another heading to a rear section I've never explored. I follow them. The air is still, so still it presses against my chest like water. My boots crunch bone-dry straw as I approach a half-open trapdoor at the back wall, hinges rusted and groaning. Footprints trail right up to it before vanishing. I switch off my flashlight and crouch low, listening. My breath thumps in my ears. I reach for the trapdoor and pull. It yields with a grunt. Cold air wafts up from below, carrying the scent of earth and something metallic, like blood or rust. My radio lies in my coat pocket, but the transmission button feels heavy in my hand. "Dispatch Harrison. Trapdoor's open. I'm going down." No reply. Static, then silence thicker than the barn walls. I lower myself, using the beam of my flashlight to guide the first shaky step. The ladder is wooden, slick with frost and older than I am. The rungs groan as I descend. Every foot lands with a subtle give, as if stepping into a world built from memory and dust. At the bottom, the beam reveals walls carved from packed clay. Fresh chisel marks gouge the sides, a tunnel not decades old, but months. The air is damp, cool, and unwelcoming. I sweep the light across the floor. Someone laid concrete recently. It's smooth, still free of cracks, bare except for a single cluster of footprints leading away into darkness. My collar tightens against the cramped ceiling. I press my back to the wall and tap the mic. Dispatch, can you hear me? Just static. The barn overhead collapses into silence once more, as if it never existed. Heart restless, I edge forward, brushing against clay walls damp enough to leave residue on my sleeves. My breath drifts in ragged puffs. The tunnel widens into a low-ceilinged chamber where a lone work light hangs by wires. Its bulb flickers weakly, casting spindly shadows that dance and stretch. On the concrete floor, lined up like exhibits in a museum, are manila envelopes sealed with numbered tags. Case 02-14, Case 03-7, Case 00-21. Each label in the handwriting of someone meticulous, obsessive. My breath hitches when I lift the nearest envelope. Through its translucent window, I see a tarnished badge. Mine. Not my current number. An old issue embossed with Harrison. The metal is scuffed, edges worn. Beyond the badge lies a stack of photographs stapled to the inside flap. Crime scenes from years ago. Files I'd closed and moved on from. Someone collected these, studied them. Someone cared about our work enough to build this place beneath a barn where nobody would look. The beam of the work light shifts. I spin toward the tunnel entrance, expecting to see movement, but there's nothing. Silence. I drop the envelope. Footsteps echo as I back toward the ladder. My mind races. Who built this? How many cases are down here? What else have they taken? My fingers curl around the ladder's wood. A dry creak echoes behind me. I freeze, every muscle taut. I pause at the hatch. My glove brushes the frost-crusted edge. The world above waits. My radio still dead in my pocket. No backup, no reinforcements, just me, in a hidden room full of secrets I only half understand. I push the trap door up and back, the hinges shrieking as the chamber gives up its breath. The barn above greets me with its empty quarters and the soft glow of the cell phone screen, still blinking its message. I climb out, knees stiff, and kick the trapdoor shut. My breath heaves into the cold. The flashlight and phone lie where I left them, like lures waiting for the next curious soul. I step back into the open air, headlights sweeping empty fields. The cruiser sits parked under the bitter moon, engine still off. My pulse pounds as I cross the gravel, past the barn door. I stop with my hand on the door handle, torn between running and standing my ground. The wind picks up behind me, carrying a whisper of movement from inside. Gravel shifts under something heavy. My fingers tighten around the handle, and I know that every silent mile of this frozen road will be haunted by what I saw. The cold seeps into me deeper than any winter wind. My shift is far from over, but part of me will never leave that hidden room beneath the Carter barn. I descend again into that silent earth, knowing I'll never see the Carter barn the same way. My boots hit the concrete floor of the hidden chamber with a hollow thud. The work light's flicker greets me like a dying eye. Dust motes swirl in the narrow beam of my flashlight as I crouch to retrieve the dropped envelope. The number reads, Case 01-12. an arson investigation from 2 winters past. I slip it into my coat pocket and stand, shoulders squared against the chill seeping from the clay walls. I move deeper into the room. The concrete gives way to rough-hewn stone at the far end, mortar fresh enough that my gloves pick up stray grains. A low hum vibrates through the floorboards over my head, more felt than heard. My heart thumps in time with it. Every instinct screams that I should leave, but I've come this far. I need to know who else this place holds. I sweep the flashlight over a low table against the wall. On it lie maps, hand-drawn sketches of Red Pine County roads and woodlands, with tiny X's marking points that correspond to each envelope's case number. My pulse quickens when I see one X drawn right here, beneath the Carter property. Another sits near the old Miller farm. Someone tracked our patrol routes, cataloged crimes we'd closed, and then stored them for future, for reasons I can barely imagine. I trace a finger over the lines of a map, following the route I drove earlier. The lines end in a jagged loop beneath a section of forest seldom traveled. I feel the weight of 100 late-night drives pooling in my chest. Each case, each frozen murder scene, each burned-out trailer, picked and stored like trophies. I check my watch. 12:28 a.m. 10 minutes since I first descended. Backup should be knocking on this barn door now, but my radio remains dead. I flick the button again, willing the static to clear. Nothing. My training fights to keep panic at bay. So I focus. They're here somewhere. Whoever built this has to return, to add another case to the collection. I can't let that happen again. I backtrack to the tunnel's entrance and press my ear to the hatch. No footsteps, no distant voices, only the hum in the floor and my own ragged breathing. I press the trapdoor open. Hammers of wind greet me, then slip my flashlight beam upward, catching a faint smear on the wood. A fingerprint in grime. Too high for me to reach comfortably. Whoever resurfaced last did so with purpose. I climb out and stand on the barn floor, chest tight. My every step echoes. I circle to where the cell phone glows. It's received another notification, an unread message icon flickering. A photo? A text? My fingers tremble as I lift it. The screen displays a single image. My cruiser, back by the station, rear lights glowing red as though someone sat inside reviewing evidence. The timestamp reads 2 minutes ago. I feel bile rise. Someone watches every move I make, mapping my patrols, cataloging my files, and now sending me proofs. I drop the phone into my coat pocket. Adrenaline surges. I sprint for the exit, but halfway out the doorway something shifts behind me. I glance back. The work light in the tunnel no longer flickers. It's off. Darkness spills out, hungry. I reach the furthest beam of my flashlight, a memory now, and the barn's emptiness closes around me. I tear across the yard, crunching over frost-hardened gravel, lunging into the cruiser. The door slams and I slam my shoulder into it until the locks engage. Fumbling, I slide into the driver's seat and fire the engine. Tires spin on the icy patch before the barn. My heart rattles as I shift into reverse and peel away, headlights carving arcs across the field. I don't brake for town. Instead, I head deeper into those back roads, following the route marked on the map back in that chamber. My breath fogs the windshield. At each intersection, I press the brakes hard, scanning the tree line. No headlights approach. No figures block the road. Only that low hum beneath. I'm chasing shadows, running toward answers that might bury me deeper. Eventually, the road narrows into 2 ruts, rims of frost-lipped grass brushing the doors. I recognize this stretch. 3 winters ago, I found a burned-out car with no plates and a body inside. I radioed in, called for arson investigators, Ran the plates against our database, nothing. The case sat cold. Tonight, I trace my tire tracks until they end at an iron gate, rusted latch hanging loose. I kill the engine again and step out. The wind bites. I cross under the gate and walk into woods so dense even the moonlight can't penetrate. The scent of pine and something acrid, like fuel, hangs in the air. Branches scrape my uniform as I push toward a pale glow deeper in the trees. There, half buried under leaves, sits another trapdoor cut into the ground. Someone carved these tunnels all across Red Pine County, hidden beneath barns and back roads. Each one a vault for our secrets. My fingers brush the latch, cold steel. I tug it open. The stairs slant downward into impenetrable black. I raise the flashlight. Its beam catches fresh chisel marks and a puddle of muddy water where someone stomped out a lantern. I pause at the top, mind racing, then step down. Each rung creaks under weight. The air tastes of wet earth and oil. At the bottom, another chamber, larger this time, stretches before me. The work light here hums steadily, powered by a generator whose cables vanish into darkness. On the floor, laid out as though on an altar, are personal items. A retired detective's service revolver, a lost girl's stuffed bear, an elderly man's war medals, and at the center, on a slab of stone, lies my digital recorder from last month's car chase. I picked it up after a traffic stop gone wrong. Shotgun. Shells scattered across the driveway, my recorder capturing every second. I folded it into evidence and forgot it. Until now. My pulse pounds so hard I hear it in my ears. I kneel and pick up the recorder, its screen intact, flashing a folder marked Last Confession. My trembling thumb taps the play icon. The speaker crackles, and I hear my own voice, weary and apologetic, recounting what happened that night. The misfire, the suspect's scream, my partner's order to retreat. And then, after a beat of silence, another voice, low, calm, saying, "Thank you for your service." The recording loops on that line. I slap the recorder off, heart pounding. The work light flickers and dies. Total darkness. My flashlight remains my only lifeline. I back toward the stairs, hands pressed against damp walls, mind racing with 1,000 questions. Who is this meticulous collector? Why stalk us? What do they want? And, most terrifyingly, have they been watching me this whole time? I climb out of the tunnel into the forest and stumble toward the cruiser. The gate slams shut behind me on its own, as though pushed by unseen hands. I slide behind the wheel and lock the doors once more. My breath steadies, but the tremor in my hands does not. I start the engine and drive out, following mile markers home. At the station, I'm silent at roll call. No one notices. They're used to me arriving late. I drive into the emptied garage and kill the lights. Behind me, the radio crackles to life. "Deputy Harrison, you in?" I don't reply. The speaker goes dead. I step out of the cruiser and glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing at the open doors. But the garage is empty. Inside the station, I head to my locker. My boots scrape on the concrete floor as I unlatch it and toss inside my coat. The envelope I stashed in my pocket flutters to the ground. Case 01-12. I glance around. The corridor is dim, fluorescent bulbs buzzing overhead. I pick up the envelope and tuck it into a drawer, beneath the files from traffic citations and paperwork no one ever reads. I pause, hand on the drawer handle. A chill crawls down my spine. Behind me, the radio springs to life on its own. No dispatch code, no static, just a single phrase in my own voice. I'm not alone. The lights in the hallway dim, and the buzz of the bulbs falters. My heart seizes. I whirl around, flashlight in hand. The corridor stretches empty, silent. The final bulb flickers out, and darkness closes in. Then, from somewhere deeper in the station, I hear the soft scrape of footsteps, my footsteps, echoing back to me. I snap the flashlight beam down the hall, and it catches something at the far end. A dark shape, still and watching. My breath catches, and I realize with a sinking certainty that the collector has found a new hiding place. A new chamber waiting beneath the walls of this station. I don't dare call for backup. I don't dare move. The shape remains unmoving as I back away, heartbeat pounding. And in that moment I understand. No matter where I go, no matter how many tunnels they seal, they will always be one step ahead, waiting in the darkness, collecting the confessions of those who thought the night was theirs alone. I sit at my desk in the dimming light of the station, hands wrapped around a mug of scalding coffee. My eyes fixed on the half-open drawer where I stashed Case 01-12. The hallway beyond is silent except for the low hum of the security cameras overhead. I force myself to breathe evenly, to steady the tremor in my fingers. Every instinct tells me to pack up and drive straight out of Red Pine County. But I'm bound by duty, and by the fact that I need answers more than I need safety. The station clock ticks past 2 a.m. I rise, leaving the coffee to cool, and step into the corridor. My flashlight beam moves with me, casting long shadows on the linoleum floor. The far end of the hall is swallowed in darkness now. The bulb overhead has finally given out. My footsteps are soft, deliberate. I pause by the surveillance monitor at the end of the hall. The screens flicker through live feeds. Booking room, evidence locker, patrol garage. But one window blinks off. The one covering my locker. In its place, a static-filled frame shows the empty floor tile where my locker stands. A cold knot tightens in my stomach. I slip my hand into my coat pocket and feel the outline of the recorder from the tunnel. I press my thumb to my lips. That final message, "Thank you for your service," echoes like a broken hymn. The corridor hush seems to swallow it. I pivot and approach the locker row. Each locker door gapes slightly, some left ajar, others closed tight. I reach mine and pause. The envelope inside is gone. My breath hitches. I wrench the drawer open. It's empty. Case 01-12, my badge, my recorder, everything has vanished. Footsteps come from the evidence room at the corridor's far side. Slow steps. Human steps. Not mine. My heart hammers. I swallow the lump in my throat and step toward the sound. Flashlight trained down the hall. The footsteps stop. Silence. My beam swings to the left, illuminating the evidence room door cracked open. Faint light spills out, and I sense movement beyond. Someone's in there. I approach, hand on my holster. Red Pine Dispatch, anyone in there? My voice is steadier than I feel. No answer. I step through the threshold. The room is lined with metal shelves, each piled with plastic bins and cardboard boxes labeled in neat print. Accident reports 2005, cold cases 1998 to 2003, confiscated weapons. But on the center table, under a single hanging bulb, lies a familiar object. The cell phone from the Carter barn, screen cracked and lifeless, alongside my flashlight, the one I dropped down the trap door. I swallow hard. Behind me, the door clicks shut. I whirl around. The beam dances across the walls. No one. The footsteps ring again, closer now, coming from behind the evidence shelves. I dip low and move toward the nearest shelf, slipping between bins. My heartbeat thunders in my ears. I think of the tunnel under the Carter barn, the hidden chambers, maps marking patrol routes. keepsakes of my career plucked from distant crime scenes, each a confession taped and filed for an unknown archivist. I realize I've become the case file, the evidence. I'm the trophy. I grip the edge of a shelf and lean around it. The evidence room door stands shut. The corridor beyond flickers with dying light. Yet at the far end of the room, in the corner, I catch a sliver of movement, a booted foot stepping soundlessly across the concrete floor. The figure is tall, lean, draped in dark clothing that blends with the shadows. I can't see a face. My mouth goes dry. I step back, and my heel catches a small box, sending it skittering across the floor. Metal clinks echo. The figure freezes, my heart in my throat. I shine the light toward the movement. Nothing. The box lies alone. I grip my holster. "Show yourself," I command, voice low. Silence. Then a whisper, so soft I almost miss it. "Don't call for help." The voice is calm, familiar, eerily so. My pulse spikes. A cold dread curls in my gut. I whisper back, voice shaking, "Who are you?" No answer. Just the low hum of the hanging bulb. I swallow and knuckle the flashlight against my holster. "I know your game," I say, stepping toward the center of the room. "You built tunnels under our barns. You collected our cases. You watched me like an exhibit. What do you want?" The boots shift. I raise my voice. "Speak!" My own footsteps echo, hollow. Then the light bulb flickers, as though shuttered by a passing cloud, and for a heartbeat I glimpse a figure standing by the doorway, slender frame, one arm resting casually on the doorframe. Their head tilts, listening. Then the light cuts out. Total darkness. My flashlight clicks off. I'm plunged into pitch black. The evidence bins loom like monoliths, the scent of old paper and plastic thick in the air. My breathing echoes around me. I fumble for the button. Nothing. No batteries. They've stolen even that. I press my back to a shelf and raise my hand, fingertips brushing against cardboard labels. I can't see them, but I can feel the grooves of tape, the edges of paper. Fear claws at my mind. My training screams, "Stay calm," but I can't find the words. A faint rhythmic tapping begins, boots pacing near the door. Then a soft scrape, like metal on concrete. My chest tightens. Each breath feels borrowed. I count backward from 10, 9, 8, 7. The tapping stops. Silence stretches. Then, from somewhere above, the radio in the evidence room crackles to life. My radio. Dispatch's voice filters through. "Deputy Harrison, status." It sounds distant, as though underwater. The static warbles his name. I stifle a sob. My fingers press the pocket where my mic should be. Empty. Then the radio shifts tone. A playback. It's the final seconds of that recording from the underground chamber. I recognize my own voice. "They're coming this way. If anyone finds this, don't come down here." The words loop, warped by static, and beneath it, unmistakably, I hear low laughter, almost mechanical, yet human, a mockery. Panic surges. I whip my head toward the doorframe, voice strangled. "This ends now." I yank at the shelf beside me, trying to find a can of pepper spray, anything. My hands close on a bloody fingerprint kit. I hurl it. It clangs across the floor and shatters. The tapping resumes, louder, faster, coming into the room. I back toward the center, every muscle primed. The laughter seeps through the radio again, slow and deliberate. My flashlight beam, still off. Then, faintly, I see it. A pair of boots stepping into the circle cast by the hanging bulb, somehow still lit. Above them, a slender silhouette emerges. The figure steps forward, and the light catches their face in a flash of reflection. It's my own face, pale as moonlight, staring back at me with hollow eyes. My breath catches. The figure tilts its head, lips curling into a slow smile. And I realize, with a cold dread, that the collector has not only learned my roots and gathered my evidence, he has become me. The laughter swells, mingling with my own voice echoing on the radio. The lights flicker, and in that moment I see it, the figure's reflection in a shattered evidence room mirror. It's me, but wrong. Angular, gaunt, eyes glinting with something not quite human. It steps closer. The laughter crescendos, drowning out my heartbeat. I raise my hand. Too late. The figure's face splits into a grin as the bulb above me shatters, plunging us both into darkness. My heart thunders in my chest as the shards of glass rain down around me. I stand frozen in the center of the dim evidence room, breathing ragged, the grin of that twisted mirror reflection still seared into my vision. My own face, but wrong. Too narrow, too sharp, eyes hollowed by something feral. The single remaining light bulb overhead quivers, flickers once, and then plunges the room into absolute darkness. I'm alone, yet I feel the weight of another presence pressing against me, cold and patient. My fingers fumble for the flashlight jarred from my belt, but the beam is dead, no batteries left, no power. The only illumination now is the faint red glow of the emergency exit sign, catching on shelves and evidence boxes that tower like silent sentinels. My ears ring with the echo of that final whisper, "Your shift never ends." My breath hitches, and I take a single unsteady step backward, only to feel the jolt of the locker door behind me, swung open by an unseen hand. A rattling clang echoes, a cascade of metal lockers shuddering in the stillness. My back meets cold steel. I dare not turn, but the air shifts as if something slides past me, brushing my shoulder with a cloth so thin I barely feel it. My mind spins. Is it the collector? Is it me? I taste copper, my own blood. The whisper returns, soft as velvet, threading through the darkness. "Come find me." I choke on the words, straining to locate their source. The hallway beyond pulses with distant fluorescent hum, then cuts out, throwing the station into deeper gloom. In the sudden black, a metallic creak from the far wall draws my attention. A filing cabinet drawer inching open on its own. A bloom of dread coalesces in my gut. I hesitate, then step forward, arm outstretched. My fingertips graze the cold handle. I yank it, sending the drawer scraping out. Inside, folders spill onto the floor. Personnel files, incident reports, rosters, and a single unmarked manila envelope lying atop them. I snatch it and flip it open. My flashlight's emergency LED in my pocket casts a dim red glow across its contents. Inside lie a series of photographs stamped with that same precise numbering system. Case 0711, Case 083, Case 0914. My own badge appears in one, the battered relic from my first night as a deputy, gleaming under the flash of the camera. Next to it, a Polaroid shows me, asleep at my desk, taken only hours ago. My breath catches. The photos fan out to reveal images of other deputies, other staff, each captured in moments of fatigue or vulnerability. Someone watched us all, documented us all. A soft shuffle behind me. I whirl around, heart in my throat, to face my partner's uniform, draped across a chair, empty. I step forward, hand trembling around the envelope, and then the chair swivels. My partner, Deputy Franklin, sits there, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. His skin is pale, waxen, as if drained of blood. My light illuminates a stiff, unnatural angle to his neck. For a heartbeat, I think he's alive. Then his head lolls to the side and his mouth opens, releasing a slow, guttural rattle that slides into the hush. I scream, backing away until I crash into a metal shelf. Dust and plastic bins clatter down. The envelope slips from my hand and flutters to the floor. The rattle continues, a broken lullaby echoing as the room seems to shudder. I spin toward the exit, but the door is gone, replaced by the rough-hewn wall of the tunnel from the Carter barn, the clay and tool marks smeared with fresh mud. My flashlight falls to my feet, flickering red. I stare, numb. The horror of those underground chambers has followed me here, transformed the station into a nerve center for this collector's madness. I crouch and snatch the flashlight, clicking the switch. It sputters to life, narrow beam cutting through the gloom, revealing the tunnel entrance yawning behind the evidence shelves. I stagger toward it, compelled despite the terror. My blood hammers in my ears, knees stiff. I raise the light and step inside. The tunnel is wider here, lined with concrete that drips water into dull pools. The work lights overhead are crudely strung, wires snaking back into the station walls. Ahead, the corridor slopes downward, a gentle incline that leads to a distant glow, warm, almost inviting. I follow, boots slipping on wet concrete. Each step echoes, mixing with the faint drip of water and something like a distant hum, as if the very earth vibrates with anticipation. I pause at a wooden door set into the far wall, one I've never seen before. It's painted red, chipped and scratched. A single metal plate bolted to the center bearing the crudely stenciled words, "Confession Room." My heart spikes. I grip the handle. It's locked. A click resonates as the latch drops. Then the door creaks open. The glow spills out in an amber ribbon across the floor. I step through. The air is thick with incense and antiseptic. A single steel chair sits in the center of a small, windowless room. Its legs are bolted to the floor. A bare bulb dangles from the ceiling on a coaxial cable. Its light bulb brand new. I feel sick, my reflection wavering on the polished floor. The envelope I dropped lies by the chair, opened and empty, its flap stained by my fingerprints. Behind me, the door slams shut. I whirl, hand on holster. The bulb overhead pulses twice, casting the room into flickering strobe. In the final flash, I see them, my fellow deputies, seated around the walls on small wooden stools. Their faces are pale, eyes glassy, uniforms pressed and immaculate. They stare at me, expressionless, as if frozen in time. In my peripheral vision, I catch movement, the collector standing among them. I shine the light, catching the collector's face at the edge of my vision. It's not me this time, not my partner, not myself, but someone else. A deputy I remember from the academy, Sheriff Martinez of a neighboring county, missing these past 5 years. Her mouth parts and her lips move, but there is no sound. The strobe flashes off, plunging me into darkness. My panic surges. I pound the door with my fists. "Let me out!" I scream. The footsteps begin again, slow, methodical, circling the chair. In the dim glow between flashes, I glimpse the collector's silhouette moving behind me. My body aches with cold sweat as I whirl around. Then, the bulb cuts entirely. Total blackness. My breath quickens, visibility nil. I listen as the hum fades, replaced by a singular drip, 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 echoing through the tunnel. I fumble for the door latch, but my fingers meet only the smooth surface of the wall. The confession room has become a prison. A voice, amplified and distorted, reverberates through unseen speakers. "Deputy Harrison, we know your secrets. We've collected every confession, every doubt, every breath of fear you've ever uttered. And now..." The voice pauses. I strain to hear. The door rattles as if pushed hard. "We've invited you to confess. Then the speaker crackles off. Silence oppressive. My chest constricts. I realize the voice was mine, warped beyond recognition. The laughter returns, and in that laughter I hear 100 voices, my own and those of every officer whose files line the tunnels. It crescendos, splitting around me, filling the darkness. I close my eyes, jaw clenched. My world narrows to a single point of dread. I am alone, surrounded by secrets and shadows, trapped within a confession that has no end. No matter how hard I run, no matter how far I drive, the collector's chambers will stretch beneath every barn, every station, every silent road, and I will never be free. Then, at the apex of that unending howling, the lights in the tunnel flicker back on, bright, blinding, and I'm standing at the threshold of the station's evidence room once more, door closed behind me. The hallway is empty, the radio's silent. The clock reads 2:47 a.m. My breath ragged, I look down at my hands and see no envelope, no recorder, only my badge, still fastened to my belt, cold metal against my palm. I step forward, heart pounding, toward the exit. The station door is open, rain-slicked stairs leading into the night. I pause under the flickering porch light, feeling the static charge of the storm to come. In the distance, lightning forks across the sky, illuminating the Red Pine County Courthouse spire. Silent, unyielding. I take a deep breath and step outside. The cold cuts through me. I look back once, half expecting that red confession room door to hover in the corridor behind the shattered windows. But it's just the station. Empty, ordinary, haunted only by the echoes of what I've become. And as I walk away, I hear it again, faint yet unmistakable, drifting on the cold wind. Your shift never ends. I pull my cruiser off the blacktop and into the narrow driveway of the old Harper farmhouse just after midnight. My boots hit the loose gravel with a soft crunch that echoes in the hollow quiet. I shut off the engine and the headlights die, leaving me in darkness so complete my flashlight seems to swallow its own beam. The radio crackles somewhere behind me, a distant whisper through the glass. My name is Deputy Mark Turner, and in 14 years on the night shift, I've learned there's a strange comfort in routine calls, a loose dog, a busted tail light, a late-night trespasser trying to spook kids. But tonight's call wasn't routine. A burglar alarm at a place that's been empty since Old Man Harper died 3 years ago. Sheriff Keller told me it's probably a faulty sensor or one blown fuse, but out here I've learned to trust neither wires nor time. I step onto the porch, the wood planks groaning under my weight. My flashlight beam picks out peeling white paint. A porch swing hanging at a crooked angle, its chain rusted. A broken window to my left is patched with a sheet of plywood, nails gnawed loose. I shine the light through the gap at eye level. Broken glass litters the floor, and I see footprints and dust. One set of boot treads leading inside, another retracing back out. The alarm must have gone off just now. I draw my weapon and ease the front door open, pushing it on squealing hinges. Dust motes drift in the beam. Inside, the air is stale, thick with the smell of old hay and mothballs. I sweep the light around the living room. An overturned rocking chair, a cracked picture frame showing Harper's family at a county fair, his daughter smiling. There's no breeze, no animals stirring, only my breath catching in my throat. I walk toward the kitchen, boots scuffing the linoleum. A loose floor tile shifts under my weight. My radio cushions against my belt. I lean in to whisper. Nothing obvious so far. Static, then silence. I open the back door onto a narrow hallway. The light flickers on my flashlight as I move, and something glints by the pantry doorway. I crouch and pick up a tarnished keychain, 2 small keys, and a metal tag engraved Harper Barn. I slip it into my pocket. Someone knew where to find that. Halfway down the hall, my light catches a scuff on the wall, smudged finger marks, as though someone fumbled through here in a hurry. The plaster crumbles where the mark ends, revealing a narrow seam. I press my fingers to it. The wall gives slightly, like a trapdoor. Back up, I murmur, louder this time. Possible concealed entry. My radio bursts alive. Copy, Turner. ETA 3 minutes. I settle against the wall beside the seam, flashlight steady, every nerve ending humming. My hand tightens on the grip of my pistol. The seam slides aside with a soft click, and the panel swings inward to reveal a hidden alcove about 3 feet deep. Inside, at shin level, I see a dark stain on the floorboards. I kneel, sweeping the beam over what looks like dried blood. My stomach twists. This is no prank. I hear something behind me, a soft scrape on the kitchen floor. I spin, light jittering across the dark. Nothing moves in the old house. My pulse throbs at my throat as I step back into the kitchen and sweep the beam across the windows. Curtains unmoved, trees outside still. Suddenly, my radio goes dead. My pulse pounds so fiercely I can taste it. I strain to hear beyond my own breathing. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, outside, circling the porch. I crouch behind the kitchen counter, using my flashlight to mark the front door. A soft tap on the glass. I raise my weapon and step forward. My boots scrape tile. The tap repeats. The window is dark, no reflection, no face. I press my forehead to the glass. Condensation beads where my breath fogs it. I press an ear to the door. The tapping stops. I slide the door open a crack. The screen is intact, my heart right behind me. I push it further. Outside, the night is empty. Only the worn porch swing sways softly, as if rocked by an unseen hand. A breeze ruffles the sleeping pines. I step off the porch and onto the gravel. Something cold brushes my boot. I glance down. A single white glove, velvet-lined, pristine except for a dark smudge at the fingertip. No branches overhead, no footprints around it. I scoop it up, pocket it, and step back. The air seems to hold its breath. I radio again, breathing slow. Turner to dispatch, I've got possible evidence. Backup needed now. The silence stretches until, at last, the faint echo of headlights announces Deputy Franklin arriving. I materialize the glove, my fingers trembling as I hold it out. She meets my gaze, and without speaking, we move in together. Inside, in the living room, Franklin sweeps a forensics light over the floor near the hidden alcove. The stain is darker than I first thought. Under her careful lens, I see flecks of hair and fabric. She nods once. I already know what she's thinking. This is no random break-in. Someone came here looking for something, or hiding something away. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the porch swing. I step back into the hall and close the panel on the alcove, sliding it flush. My hand lingers on the wall, cold, quiet. The house seems to hold a secret in its bones. Later, back at the station, I sit under the harsh fluorescent lights, cleaning my weapon by rote, my hands not fully steady. Franklin's in the lab, dusting for prints. Every so often, the radio interrupts. An alarm reset at the Harper place, a false alarm at the feed mill, a call about a stray pickup on Ridge Road. I ignore them all. I clean the barrel until the metal shines, then rack the slide until it locks back. The room is so quiet I can hear the ticking of the old wall clock. I lower the weapon onto the bench, lean forward, and rest my head in my hands. Outside, the station stands dark, windows reflecting the empty lot. I know I'll be back on those roads soon. Harper's house won't stay abandoned forever. Someone will come back for whatever they left, or for what they took. And I'll be the one walking that porch, flashlight shaking in my hand, hearing every creak in the wood like a heartbeat in my chest. Because on the night shift, when the world sleeps, you learn that silence can kill you just as easily as a bullet, and no two calls are ever the same. I sit up, sliding my hat back on. The Owens Mill call comes through. A broken fence, livestock loose. Another routine check. I holster my weapon, grab my flashlight, and step out into the night. Boots echoing on pavement as the door clicks shut behind me. The Harper farmhouse watches from its clearing, dark windows like eyes. I don't know who planted the keychain, who cut the seam in the wall, or who left that glove on the porch. But I do know this. It's only a matter of time before they come back. And I'll be ready. I pause for a moment on the patrol road, eyes scanning the tree line. My hand tightens on the steering wheel. The corona of the dashboard light paints my knuckles white. The radio hisses. I squeeze the wheel again and drive on. I'm Deputy Mark Turner, and the night is long enough to hide more secrets than I'll ever uncover. But I won't stop looking. Not until the sun breaks the horizon and all this darkness is forced into the open. I sit on the tailgate of my cruiser at the Owens feed mill, the broken fence now secured, and the cattle herded back into their pens. The amber glow of my taillights splashes over the rusted metal siding, and the wind carries the low moan of grain bins settling in the cool night air. I rub my face with both hands, tracing the lines of fatigue that have dug themselves into my skin over a decade of midnight shifts. Every call adds a notch to my exhaustion. Every creaking barn door, every unexpected silhouette in the woods. I check my watch. It's 3:47 a.m. Another hour until shift change. I reach inside the cruiser for my thermos. Cold coffee sloshes against the rim as I take a long swallow. No sugar, no cream, just bitter warmth. Keeps me alert, keeps me alive. My radio crackles, a missing person report at the old Ridge Road curve. Same stretch where I found that abandoned Nissan a week ago. I hesitate a moment, thinking of the glove in my pocket and the hidden alcove in the Harper house. The test results haven't come back. Forensics said they'll let me know if there's a match, but I've lived too long to wait for lab work. I drive out of the mill yard, headlights tracing the fence line as I head north. The feed mill's neon sign, the faded letters spelling Owens Feed and Grain, flickers twice, then goes dark. The road narrows to single lane with no shoulder, pines leaning inward like silent sentinels. Loose gravel fringes the asphalt. I slow to 30 miles per hour, scanning the tree line. If someone left the car here, they could slip into those woods without a sound. At mile marker 12, I find a set of footprints edging into the ditch. Boot treads matching the tire tracks I logged earlier. I grab my flashlight in one hand and service weapon in the other. The beam hits a discarded travel mug, dented and stained, half buried in leaves. I kick at it. It clatters against the rocks. No name, no initials, just a mug someone carried through those woods. I follow the footprints, stumbling over pine roots. The beam catches on a length of nylon rope caught in a low branch, noose-like knot at one end. My stomach knots as I note the loose ends fraying. It's deliberate. Someone left this here, a message. My radio hisses, "Turner, you good?" It's Franklin, her voice steady. I reply, "Found rope." Tracks going deeper, need canine. I pause at the rope, pressing my thumb to the soggy fibers. They smell faintly of gasoline and pine. I pocket a length for evidence and turn my beam back down the path. The forest swallows the beam. Each step feels heavier than the last. The wind whispers through the canopy. But I hear another sound. Metal scraping on metal, distant but clear. I strain to place it, like a gate swinging on its hinges, but there's no gate here. My heart pounds. I aim the light toward the sound, nothing moves. I creep closer, flashlight bobbing. Each branch I brush snapping sharply. The noise stops. I freeze, breath shallow. Then a soft thud, behind me. I whirl, light slicing through darkness. A fallen log at the edge of the trail, my cat's. Eye staggers across the wood, soaking up the pattern of moonlight and shadow. No person. I bend to pick up a fallen pine cone, examine its scales. My mind races. A hiker, a hunter, a kid playing a prank? None of it fits. Whoever planted that noose wanted to be found, but not caught. The twisted intent behind that rope is what keeps me moving, despite the creep at the back of my neck telling me to run. My radio buzzes with Franklin's approach. Her headlights carve a path through the trees. I stand, tucking the rope into an evidence bag I carry on my belt. I flag her down. She kills her engine. We stand shoulder to shoulder, flashlights scanning. "Gunshots at Harper Farmhouse," she says quietly. Her face is pale. "Neighbors reported 2 quick shots 10 minutes ago. No response to radio calls." My throat closes. I swallow. I know exactly what that means. Someone's still inside. We sprint back to our cruisers and race toward Harper's. The pine-scented wind whips past the windows as I drive. My pulse spikes. I remember the hidden alcove, the dried stain, the glove. My mind catalogs every loose floorboard, every broken latch. We arrive at the Harper place in under 5 minutes. Yellow tape now cordons off the driveway. Patrol cars are parked at odd angles. Franklin kills her engine. I flick off my lights and step into darkness, gun drawn. The front door hangs wide, splintered wood at its frame. 2 deputies stand sentinel, oaths sworn in a cold hush. I push past them. The living room is chaos. Furniture overturned, pictures torn from walls, broken glass glittering like scattered diamonds. My flashlight beam finds fresh scuff marks on the hardwood, boots striking wood with force. My stomach churns as I follow the path gleaming through the mess, leading toward the hidden panel in the hallway. Franklin catches up behind me, whispering, "Evidence bag and gloves on the floor near the panel." She nods toward a plastic bag on the rug. Inside, the glove I pocketed, plus a second matching glove, spotless white. Why leave them? Anyone with sense would grab both. Why one, then come back to drop another? I kneel beside the bag. The gloves are smooth, no fingerprints. I lean forward, and my fingers brush fresh blood on the bag's corner. I stand swiftly, heart pounding, torchlight shaking. Franklin shines her beam on the panel, now swung wide. The alcove is empty, no stain, no signs of anything. Someone cleaned it, or they carried it away. My radio hisses, "Dispatch calling Turner." We lower our lights. I flip open the mic. "Go ahead." "Deputy, there's family at the station. They say they found this taped to their door." A soft beep as an image comes through on my in-car tablet. A photograph taken in daylight of a child's drawing, hung by masking tape on a front door. The drawing shows a house with 2 figures outside and another figure inside at a window, arms raised. Red crayon streaks across the center. The message scrawled below in childish letters, "They come at night." I trace a finger over the sketch. My stomach flips. I glance back to the farmhouse, windows dark, shuttered. The chill at my core grows icy. Behind me, Franklin murmurs, "This has his fingerprints all over it." I turn, grip tightening on the tablet, reading the caption, "Every house a puzzle. Find the pieces." Then my tablet goes dead. The screen flickers and dies, No signal, no power. I stare at the black rectangle as if it held the answers. From somewhere in the farmhouse comes a faint clicking, like a camera shutter or a latch snapping. I raise my flashlight and gun together, eyes narrowing. No one moves in the yard. I creep toward the porch. My boots whisper against the gravel, silent compared to the roar in my veins. I reach the porch, and the door swings closed before I touch it, slamming against the frame with a dull thud. The front window beside it flares with a single flash of light, as though someone inside took a photo with flash. Then darkness. My breath catches. I pound on the door, shouting, "Police! Open up!" No answer. Then another flash, a second later. The window lights up again, briefly illuminating the shape of someone standing just beyond the glass. Tall, slight, impossible to tell. No weapon, no movement. Just standing, watching. A gust of wind rattles the porch swing. I exhale slowly through clenched teeth and step back, raising my flashlight in front of me. It reveals the words scratched into the peeling wood beside the door, piece by piece. Silence settles like snow. My pulse hammers in my ears. I lower the light and step off the porch, careful of the uneven boards. Franklin moves alongside me, breathing in short bursts. "Turner," she says softly. I shake my head, unable to speak. We call for the SWAT team, barricade the property, and wait under the pale glow of floodlights. The farmhouse looms, windows dark as empty sockets. All around us, the night stands still, heavy with secrets. I watch the house, every instinct screaming at me to run inside to find whoever's behind those windows. But protocol and fear holds me back. In the hour that follows, cameras click 30 times, but each image is blank. A flash of light against darkness. No silhouette, no face. The forensic team sweeps the grounds at dawn, finding only more gloves, traces of the same boot polish we matched to old cases years ago, and a single puzzle piece clipped to the mailbox. By sunrise, the Harper farmhouse is sealed. Evidence vault, vault evidence. I step away, letting the new deputies take my place. My shoulders slump as the sun bleeds pink across the horizon. I drive back to the station in silence, the puzzle piece taped to my dashboard. A corner of a photograph showing a family at dinner, smiling faces, bright kitchen lights. A chipped mug sits on the table in the drawing, the same mug I found by Ridge Road. As I pull into the lot, I realize how thin the line is between home and nightmare. How every call, every bent key, every whisper in the dark pulls me deeper into something I can't solve, can't escape. I holster my shotgun in the rack and step out of the cruiser. The station's doors are locked behind me. I walk through the quiet halls toward my desk. The puzzle piece feels heavy in my coat pocket. I sit down, open the evidence bag, and hold the piece under the harsh fluorescence. The edges are smooth, worn from handling. I trace the outline with my fingertip. It fits nowhere in my mind. No case file matches, no local missing persons photo wall. The phone rings once. I let it ring twice, then answer. Sheriff's office. A child's voice whispers, "Ready to play?" And the line goes dead. I stare at the blank receiver, blood pounding in my temples. Outside, the dawn creeps across the sky, and for the first time I feel real fear, not for myself, but for every house under the horizon's light. Because night does come again. And when it does, the pieces will fall into place, one by one, whether I want them to or not. I step out of my car into the cold morning air, the chill settling into my bones like a warning. My breath puffs in short clouds as I head for the station door, the puzzle piece heavy in my pocket. The faint hum of fluorescent lights greets me as I cross the threshold, and I pause in the lobby, glancing at the digital clock over the front desk. 5:07. 2 hours until the next shift change. 2 hours to prepare for what comes next. I walk down the hallway toward the evidence locker, passing rows of metal filing cabinets stuffed with case files. Missing persons, break-ins, crashes, disturbances. Each folder bears a name, a date, a life interrupted. I stop before the locker where we store items too small to catalog in room 101. I swipe my badge and the door clicks open. Inside, the puzzle piece waits, taped to a board. I lift it out and cradle it in my hand. Earlier this morning, forensics called me. The glove and rope both tested positive for the same unique boot polish we found at the quarry murders 15 years ago. Not just any polish, military grade, issued only to local law enforcement and National Guard units. There are only a few dozen bottles in circulation. One of them is unaccounted for. One was last logged out by a name I know too well. I tuck the puzzle piece back into its evidence bag, lock the locker, and head to my desk. My computer is already booting up. I pull up the records for the bottle of polish. Logged out in 2001 by Officer William Garrett. Retired in 2005. Odd that his name still appears on current logs. Someone added it back in just this month. My phone buzzes. Caller ID, unknown. I ignore it. Something else pings, an email from dispatch with no subject. I open it. A single attachment, a JPEG of the Harper farmhouse at dawn, lights all on inside, windows glowing yellow. On the front porch, taped to the door. Another puzzle piece matching mine perfectly, forming a fragment of the same family dinner photo. Beneath it, in neat block letters, "Thank you for playing." I stare at the screen until the image glitches and the attachment disappears. Heart pounding, I jump up and sprint down the hall to the bullpen. The other deputies are here, eating stale donuts, sipping coffee, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Franklin stands at the dry erase board, reviewing logs from last night. I hold up my phone. "Check your phones. We've got confirmation. Our polish matches Garrett's bottle. Someone in or near law enforcement is behind this." Heads swivel. Deputies murmur. No one speaks Garrett's name aloud. His crimes are old news. 4 victims, convictions in 2011, died in prison in 2017. But tonight, something else is happening. The case that ended under Sheriff Keller's reforms is alive again. Franklin clears her throat. Also, just got a call from the post office. 3 envelopes addressed to us. No return addresses. Each contains a single puzzle piece and nothing else. She passes around the pieces. We spread them on a desk. 4 fragments forming the left half of the table scene. 4 smiling faces. Mother, father, 2 children. The family from the cafe murder in 2003. Only one piece is missing. The piece showing the front door of the house. A new chime. Dispatch over the radio. "Deputy Turner, report to District 4 roadblock. Suspicious vehicle spotted leaving Ridge Road heading west." I grab my coat. The others form a tense knot behind me. Franklin follows. Outside, the sun is up, but weak. A pale disk behind gray clouds. My cruiser's lights spin in red and blue at the roadblock. An old school bus idling sideways to block the road. 2 deputies stand by the bus, rifles ready. I duck under the police tape and approach. "Morning," I say, voice tight. They nod. "We got him," one says. Driver matches description. Dark sedan, tinted windows, no plates. Came through here 10 minutes ago, slowed, then spun around and headed back. "Where now?" I ask. "East on County 7. We set up spike strips." I slide into the driver's seat of my cruiser, heart thumping. Franklin is beside me, eyes bright with adrenaline. We flip on lights and siren roaring off the blacktop. My knuckles whiten on the wheel as we pass cornfields yawning in the daylight. At the next intersection, the bus and the other cruiser block one lane. I slow, pull in beside them. The first deputy tips his head toward a lone sedan parked in the ditch, tires half off road, no plates, door ajar, engine cold. I draw my weapon, step onto the gravel, flashlight raised. Franklin follows. Lights off, only our beams slice through the quiet. I shout, "Police!" Step away from the vehicle. Nothing. No movement inside or out. My beam crosses the roof, the hood, then drops to the ground. Another white glove lies in the ditch next to the front tire. No blood, no dirt, just clean, fresh fabric. I pocket this glove in an evidence bag and step closer to the car. The glass is intact except for a single hole in the windshield. Tiny, clean, like a camera shutter ring. I peer inside. On the passenger floorboard, a single puzzle piece taped to the carpet. It's the missing door fragment, front door of the house. I scoop it up, heart pounding. Piece 5, I murmur. All 5 pieces now in evidence bags, our puzzle nearly complete. What the hell does it spell? What picture forms? My phone rings, unknown. I press answer. On the other end, a child's voice, distant. Almost there. The line goes dead before I can say anything. A breath of wind rattles the car. Franklin calls over the radio. Dispatch reports all exit roads blocked. No one in or out of county. My pulse races. Someone is controlling this. Someone orchestrating every move. I load the pieces into my breast pocket, lock the car door with my radio. Let's get back to the station, I say quietly. We need to assemble this. We drive in silence, lights still on, windows down to let in the cold breeze. The gravel crunches under our wheels. Franklin breaks the silence. Do you think it's Garrett's ghost? I glare at her. There are no ghosts, just people with grudges. She nods, but keeps her voice low. Then who? My eyes on the road. I don't know, but I do know this. Whoever sent the letters in 2009, the tipster who uncovered Garrett's decades-old crimes, she still watches, she still plays, and now she's back with a new puzzle. Back at the station, we clear the conference room and lay out the pieces on the table. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead. I arrange them by numbering each fragment. Harper kitchen scene, Owen's farm table, Colin's dining room, Watt's backyard, and now the house door. Together they form the complete scene. A family seated at a dinner table, plates piled high, but with 2 empty chairs. The father and mother look at the children with joy, but the 2 children's faces are scratched out in red. I trace the red lines with my finger, feeling queasy. 2 empty chairs, 2 missing kids, 2 sets of footprints we couldn't find, 2 nights when no one slept. My phone buzzes again. A text message, no number. Find them before midnight. I look at Franklin. Her eyes are wide. We both know the meaning. There are 2 children still out there at risk. 2 chairs at the table waiting, 2 seats to fill. Someone is playing a game with us, using memories of old crimes, now tying us to new victims. Every piece we find is another chapter in this nightmare. And now, as the sun climbs higher, the clock is ticking toward midnight. Only 19 hours left. I rise from the table, puzzle pieces in hand. Find the children, I say, voice hollow. Then find who's behind this. Franklin nods. We'll start with the Harper farmhouse, then Ridge Road. I glance at the door. Outside, the world moves on. Patrol cars come and go, citizens go about their day. But inside this department, time has warped. Night and day have lost meaning. Yesterday's crimes bleed into today's horrors. I tuck the pieces into my coat pocket, feeling their weight against my ribs. As I step out into the bullpen, the overhead lights flicker, then stabilize. A stray beam falls on the whiteboard, where someone has scrawled in black marker, "Midnight belongs to her." My breath stops. I spin to Franklin. She's pale, staring at the board. I read the words again. Midnight belongs to her. Her? I swallow hard. Who? She shakes her head. I don't know. Behind us, the doors to the evidence locker stand slightly ajar. I turn slowly toward them, hand drifting to my sidearm. Inside, on the shelf, sits the final box of prison records. William Garrett's personal effects. The files inside are unsealed. The only thing missing, his military-issue boot polish. My stomach drops as I realize the bottle returned itself months ago, and someone else collected the last puzzle piece yesterday. I step forward, reaching for the locker door. My phone rings again. Same unknown number. On the screen, a timestamp, 23:59 tonight. I let the locker door swing open on its creak. My flashlight beam rests on the empty shelf where the bottle should be, and I realize with sickening clarity, they've taken it. Behind me, Franklin gasps. I don't turn. I know what's coming next. At midnight she comes, and when she does, there will be no more pieces to find, only the empty chairs waiting in the dark.